Right, I'm recording.
So me too. So welcome, everyone, back to another Energy Ninja podcast episode. And today we wanted to talk about just continue conversation where we left off from the previous episode, and it is loss of friendship.
Hmm.
And I mean it's there's so many different things that we can say about it, but for today we're really just going to talk about energy and you know how the energetic exchange goes between friends, beginning, middle, and anything else that really comes up for us as we talk about loss of friendship. And if I remember correctly, where we were at last episode, we were talking about how this is one area that very, very, very few people actually talk about. It's almost like it's non-existent, and it's not as valid or not as important as a romantic relationship, and people do not give themselves time to grieve, nor are actually aware the importance of grieving, of a loss of a loved one, because they were your friend, you loved them, and however relationship ended, it's kind of besides the point, and yes, yet it is part of the point, and it is important to grieve. And for some people, like, we all grieve differently. I am a verbal person. Rachel, you know that, right? I like to, when I'm going through a loss, or a fear that I'm about to lose something, I need to talk about it. And I talk and I talk and I talk. And then I hear myself. And I hear myself talking, and I can connect the dots. And if I have the friend that I'm talking to who has either mastered or is becoming a master on holding space, this is like, that's a game changer,
Hmm.
right? So, your turn, Rachel.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you brought up the um the value of grieving and and the the fear that comes with the loss. Like with any loss, it hurts. If we truly loved, and which is one way to view the loss at and the feeling, the grief that we feel over the loss, to view it as sacred, like the sacred human experience, and um, and it's so natural to grieve and mourn. This actually just came up for me yesterday in speaking with a friend because we were realizing just how quickly some people are evolving in terms of lifestyles. Like maybe some people are making personal decisions to quit drinking. And they had a group of friends that were essentially drinking buddies. There's a lot of fear in that. And maybe at first we might, uh, it's really common to use judgment to protect ourselves from the loss. So it could be really easy to judge our former self, judge our former friends, because that at that time when we're drinking and we're surrounded by drinking buddies, at that time we're all reflections of that pattern. And it's just the pattern is how we learn to connect. We weren't really told most of you are going to make your friends by drinking and partying, and it feels like connection, but really it's escapism and numbing and distraction. We weren't really told that. So we do develop these bonds through that, through drinking, and so when we are growing and choosing different lifestyles that are geared more toward health, wellness, and deep intimate connection, it might be easiest to view and judge those former selves um, those former reflections. And that judgment can kind of protect us from the pain of the loss that occurs when we grow. And really, when we move beyond that judgment and we see like that actually was really my group of friends and we really had fun. I loved them with my whole heart. And it's okay that nothing's ever going to be the same again. And nothing, and it's not supposed to be. Life changes. We are meant to grow. We're meant to evolve. And there is a lot of nostalgia that we work through when we realize it's not going to be the same again because we've grown into this new evolved version of ourselves. Whereas that previous group of friends, they might still be, meeting at the same bar. Um, well, I don't know now because of the way the world is. I'm not really sure how people connect through drinking and stuff like that right now. But maybe those the former groups of friends are still doing that, doing all the same things, and that's okay. Or maybe enough time passes where there's no longer hard feelings, and we are seen, the person who grows first or evolves first is seen as a guiding light and someone who is safe to seek advice from, or um, stuff like that. It's all a natural cycle, and usually that protective armor that we put on is just coming from a place of not wanting to feel the pain. Like we might trick ourselves into believing, oh well, those relationships weren't real anyways because they were based on drinking or whatever they were based on. Sure, maybe they were based on an illusion or trauma bonds. Very common to have relationships based on trauma bonds, and then we grow, and then those bonds are kind of dissolved, and that's all okay. You know, and sometimes we might create chaotic situations subconsciously to end relationships. Like sometimes it might be like throwing a grenade on a relationship and watching it just blow up. And that can also be a way to protect us because we just haven't really learned the vocabulary and the energy to break up with a friend the way that we do in a romantic relationship. Like romantic relationship, pretty straightforward. Like you break up, you break up. A friendship is not so straightforward. There's no real easy way to say I've grown into these new patterns. You're still repeating the old patterns. I don't relate to them anymore. No hard feelings, not judging. Have fun. I'm gonna have fun. We're all gonna have fun doing what we do. Yeah.
And I feel like some people also don't actually end that relationship.
Mhm.
And it's like they stop communicating,
Mhm.
um, and nobody really ends it.
Yeah.
There are people that end the relationship and they and that's because they're more skilled in the communication department, because communication is not about just talking. Communication is about listening and understanding and hearing and holding space, and then speaking as well, right? And people that are excellent at that skill, they're the ones that typically are able to end the relationship because they can verbalize,
Mhm.
based on the whole entire journey of, right now, like one of the things you mentioned was growing apart, where one person outgrows the other, or they're both growing, and people are always growing, right? Um, so whether they're aware of it or not, they're still growing, and just growing in different directions based on what they're exposing themselves to.
Mhm.
And that's what often happens in a relationship, and which means that there is no clear end. So it feels like a really long stretch of a loss, and I sense that this could be the main reason why people don't talk about a loss of a friendship because they don't see the end of it because it was never clear. It's like even in movies we've heard where one partner, one romantic relationship, they need closure, and closure means having that conversation that I get you, you get me, or we don't get each other, or whatever that conversation is like. But at least you know that there is a clear and. And in a lot of these friendships, there is no clear and. So this person or both individuals continues to carry the attachment to this friendship and the loss of this friendship because they're not clear. Are we still friends? Are we not? What the frick is going on? It's like, I want to be friends with you, and at the same time, I don't want to be friends, and I want to know if we're still friends, and at the same time, I don't want to know. I'll just sit and wait it out. And they're not talking about this window, this gap of suffering that one goes through, really. How many times or how many hours do people actually spend on, in the past and thinking about friendships that they have had or lost, or the beauty of the friendships they had.
Mm-hmm.
Like even thinking back for myself, I don't think I've had very many of these, ending of a relationship. This is it. This is it. That's it. It's often left as, you know, um, one way or another, kind of like, we'll reconnect later, or we'll talk later, or when you're ready to go and hang out, let me know, or let me know when you're free, right? Kind of like one of those things, and it just kind of hangs there and hangs there, and it's like both people might be waiting for the other person, because some people also they like to take turns. I call you, you call me. I call you, you call me, and it's like, this is not a friendship. This is like something else.
Not natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or blaming one another.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's no telling what's going on inside everybody's heads. Like the interpretation block could be running wild, making all sorts of interpretations about those gaps in communication, and that could create more and more distance and um and just shadowy feelings and like dense feelings and weight on the shoulders. Like we might start making up all sorts of interpretations in our heads of why we're no longer in communication, and also justifying, like sometimes we make those interpretations to justify that we're no longer in communication, and then we feel better about it because we're like, oh well, like keeping count, like she did this and this and this, and even when I tried this she did this, and maybe she was never my friend. And it's really sad because then when we're doing that, we're kind of putting someone out of our heart, like someone who is really actually in our heart. And then when we're justifying the separation, we're out of the heart, we're back in the head. And there were beautiful moments, I'm sure, like otherwise we wouldn't have been friends with them. I'm sure we laughed together. I'm sure we had shared experiences that were so beautiful and will remain in the heart forever. But if we don't have that proper closure, and it could be internal, it's like I cannot tell you how many cord cutting exercises I've done for romantic partners. I haven't really done them for friendships, but now talking this through, I think I'm going to, um, just to be able to. So something I do in my cord cutting visualizations, I then plug the cut ends of the cords into something else. So like I'll plug mine into Mother Earth or something, plug theirs into like some healing crystal, But so something like that could be really empowering. Like we don't even necessarily have to say like, look, I know we stopped being friends. No hard feelings. I'm just growing and you're growing and my friends are more into this, your friends are more into that. We don't necessarily even have to have those conversations if we're not filling our heads with interpretation blocks that make us feel shame or guilt or um, we can absolutely feel grief. I think grief is so healthy to feel, something that I remind myself all the time. And it was this really helpful acknowledgement when I was experiencing the loss of a romantic relationship, and he was already off with his new partner, and I was like, my head was kind of spinning, and I was like, what, like, how could that be when I'm still just like, oh, my heart is just crushed. And then I realized, and I was struggling with the loss and grief, and I was like in this like deep ocean of grief, and he didn't appear to be. He was just like moving on. And at first it was I felt a lot of disillusion, like maybe our relationship wasn't what I thought it was. And then I realized, you know what? To me it was. To him, not so much, but to me, the love I felt was real. And the grief I'm experiencing just shows how deep I was loving. And that's amazing. Like that's about me. It had nothing to do with him. That was all about me. And it really reframed my grief and loss for me as just a reflection of my own capacity to love. And then I could have compassion for his journey, because I was like, wow, he might not know how to love at all if he doesn't experience any kind of loss. Like it kind of seemed like he was just in his head, which is typical of narcissists. They're looking for the next energetic supply. So if you're just always looking for the next energetic supply, you're not really going to surrender into love at the heart. You're always going to just be like kind of calculating, like, oh, this barometer is running out. Gotta go find a full barometer to drain. And so just reframing the experience, like, whoa, I have the capacity to love so deep because this grief is excruciating. It's ripping my guts out and my heart is just bleeding all over the place. That must mean I really loved and loved, in that case, loved someone who wasn't even loving me back. So imagine what love with someone who loves me back is gonna be like. And the same could be said for friends, family. I just experienced that when I left my house, my parents' house on Thursday to come back here. Um, I just like was crying out of nowhere and just like grieving, leaving my parents' house, which was completely new. And I was like, whoa, this must mean I love my family so much. I didn't even know that. I thought I was like, I didn't even know I love them that much. But this grief that I'm feeling because I can't be in two places at once, wow, that says a lot about my capacity to love and to love people who have created some amazing karmic wounds for me to work through in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, it's so sacred. Really, I just have so much appreciation and gratitude for the experience of grief when it comes to loss, because that's really why we're here, is to love and experience love and loss, like life and death, birth and death.
Yeah. And it sounded like what you were saying is re like rewriting or reframing the assumption or the interpretations of a relationship, which reminded me of my I've been married since I was 21, so I haven't had any romantic relationships after 21.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's all like friends relationships or people who I thought were friends, where it wasn't returned or didn't feel equal. But I remember prior to finding the one. If some people believe that there is the one, I believe that there is many ones. It's ones and twos, right, and zeros. So anyways, one of the things that I heard many times over the years of being a teenager and dating, is about wasting time being in a relationship. Look how much time you wasted with this individual where you could have been doing something else. And my response was always, and I didn't even realize it until now, my response was always this: I never look at anything that I have done as a waste of time, because there was so much that I got to experience, and I got to learn so much and give love and receive love,
Mm-hmm.
that I never look at anything, any relationship, as a waste of time. Because the moment I do, that is when I have truly lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And yeah, I'm like, and it's interesting that that is the way that I have been reminded of through the law of being. And then now with listening to you explain how you would reframe and see all that you have benefited from in that particular relationship. And I never even realized that I too have done that, because it's been so long. And the same thing goes for friends. When a relationship is over or unsure, right? Because over means that there's a clear end to it. For most people, it's left incomplete. Um, it's important to look at the pros list. Make that pros list. Don't need to make a cons list. There's really no point of making a cons list at this particular with this particular example. Loss of a friendship, right? Loss of a relationship, romantic, relationship is also with friends. And just make a pro list of what did you gain from this relationship, and start with a list of 10. I just list 10 things that you have gained, and I can pretty much guarantee you, once you make the 10, everything else will just flow right through you. And it's like, oh, it's this and this and that. And then all of a sudden, you might find yourself reaching out to that individual, maybe to have a conversation. Or maybe you also see that you gain so much that there's no need to reach out. Or maybe you decide that I need closure, and so does that person. Because those cords that you talk about, for me, all of the cords that I've been cutting for the past couple of years have all been friends, and they continue to reattach themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're close friends or not, that attachment of the cord is not necessarily need to be there, because
Mm-hmm.
they are more than capable of being their own charge and supply. Like when you were expressing, sharing that you connect that tube of yourself to the earth, there you go. They have that access. But if they continue to attach themselves to people in their life for their energetic supply, narcissist or not, we all attach ourselves. And it's our individual responsibility and a job to, detach, and you can reconnect theirs to something else, right? But always be thankful and grateful for that attachment,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a really long pros list.
It's honestly, I think it's one of the most sacred and unique things about being a human is that we attach to other humans. To me, that is so beautiful. I went through a long period of life after my awakening that was like, so I had a spiritual awakening end of 2016, beginning of 2017, and then for years for about 2, 3 years, I was walking around saying things like I experienced so much detachment from the earthly plane. I was on this end of the extreme where I was walking around saying things like, I don't think biological families matter that much. I was like, I'm so ancient, like my biological family is not that big of a deal. And and really I was saying things to protect me because they didn't no longer understood me because I kind of popped out the other side of the matrix. I was like looking at them in their bottle, looking at the label, like, okay, that's my biological family with all their patterns. Like, I'm not one of them. I'm over here with like my aliens. And so I completely detached. I felt no emotional attachment whatsoever. I didn't care. I was like trying to make myself feel feelings for them by like imagining if they were to die. And I felt nothing. I was like, I guess this is me now. And which made this last experience of leaving to come back so amazing. I was like, whoa, I have never felt love for my family like this before. All of the wounds that I had been holding on to, like this, that kept me in my self righteousness, that I would like point my fingers, like, they did this is their fault. They just dissolved. All these feelings of like how I never felt safe as a kid, that dissolved, and I was like, "Oh my god, I was safe all the time. They loved me the whole time." And I was like weeping. So it's just so interesting, like this like pendulum swing back into complete attach. Like I felt so much attachment that I was ready to walk around being like, "Please don't die. I love you so much." And and it was just like such a cool experience, and I was like, wow, this is what we're here for, to experience the depths of our attachment. And it's just, yes, detach. And like sometimes I gotta, detach every 5 minutes, but in those 5 minutes of attachment I feel these depths of love that are just so unique to the human experience. And I'm so grateful, like, to have just like my heart be just like beating with love for my family, that I thought that I was like, honestly, I was like, do I love, am I like never gonna love them again? What's going on here? Because I had detached so completely. It is, yeah, I just find it one of the most beautiful, sacred things about being human is that we do develop these attachments to other humans. And it does hurt when when it becomes clear that the attachment is not serving us. And then in that moment, it's kind of tricky. How do we navigate? It's not serving us. What do we do? Do we say, I don't want to be your friend anymore? I don't want to be in your life anymore? Do we just kind of like go silent? There's really no right or wrong way. Like, for example, with my family, when I was like, I don't think biological family is that important, I didn't talk to them for a very long time, which gave them all that time to fill in the gaps, to make interpretations about me. I was making interpretations about them. And then so when we did come together, just like friction, friction, friction. And now where we are, this like amazing reconciliation, I'm able to meet them with love. They're able to meet me with love. And it's this kind of relationship that I thought was never going to be possible. I thought I would never be able to show appreciation for my dad when he offers advice. And I, before this most recent experience of being home, I was like, don't tell me what to do. You know nothing about me. And now I'm able to have compassion. Like, this dude's gonna be at the end of his life soon. Like, anything he wants to share, I must consider sacred, and thank my elder. And it's just, yeah, just this beautiful spectrum of human emotion when it comes to our relationships. And I do believe, like, that's why we're here. Like, I love level 7 land of being like, I'm intimately connected to everything and everyone. I don't need to share my life with any one human being. And that's great. Love it there. And then, but then I love coming back into the joy I experienced in a shared experience with another, and the love just straight from my heart, like seeing my grandma, like seeing a family member struggling with either like physical pain or mental pain, and not attaching, just be like, oh, look, this human having this human struggle, like, oh, I just love you so much. Yeah. So
I was also hearing a little bit of like not becoming consumed
mm-hmm.
the other individual. So it's like attachment, detachment, and then becoming consumed.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, especially like in the beginning of a relationship, I feel like everyone becomes very consumed with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're, whether it's a friend or not,
Oh yeah.
and or a romantic relationship, you become you're in the middle, sorry, you're in the beginning of this love that is growing.
Mm-hmm.
You're building and growing love. So it saddens me to not hear anyone talking about the loss of a friendship, like that they actually love one another and admit it, and they love one another and showing that love. And in the beginning, there's a lot of attachment. You become consumed with one another, where you find yourself thinking about the other person, of how you spend time together, how much fun it was, and what you're going to do next. And you're in that consumption period, obsession. You're like obsessed with one another. And then slowly, 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 you can, what happens sometimes in relationships is that this is the puppy love stage, and then you start to show yourself and your true colors. And one of the quotes that I've heard Oprah say quite a few times is this: when a person shows you who they truly are for the first time, believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And because most of us have been taught to hope instead of believe, or pay attention to the signs, the red flags that so many of us are very familiar with based on the previous relationships, these red flags coming up and telling you, what might be happening. And it's important to believe that individual. And, in that case, possibly cut the relationship short so you avoid, or you can continue to hope and see what happens. And also talking about it. I think this wasn't part of the recording, but Rachel, you gave a great example of, the importance of talking. When you have this ball of yarn all tangled up in your mind, and then by you talking about it, you're taking that ball of yarn and you are exactly like you are rolling it back in a perfect circle, or maybe a triangle, or whatever shape you want to do that in. And that's why it's important to have someone who is helping you to unravel that ball of yarn by holding space, which means letting you talk without inserting themselves into that equation, because that equation is between me, myself, and I. If you haven't watched that movie with Jim Carrey, Me, Myself, and Irene, it might be an interesting movie to watch, but that equation is me, myself, and I, without an external addition to it, because it just throws everything out of balance.
Yeah.
So it's important to work through yourself and your relationship on your own, and come to a decision on your own, which will, talking about it will help you to unravel that loss and grief through the process. So, yeah, now we're like getting close to the end of our time together. I wanted to ask you, what do you want to leave our audience with?
Probably permission to grieve loss of any relationship. Of it could even be a relationship that you still have, but an element of your relationship might be in the past. And for example, I know I used to be a heavy drinker. I used to love partying, and I was very celebrated drunk. And so many of my relationships with the people who loved me as a drunk, I no longer have. um, and I could mourn. But some people I still have relationships with, and though and who also quit drinking when I did. I mean, I still have a beer every now and then, um, but I just not like I used to, and I can grieve. Actually around last year at this time, I did spend some time like grieving that I like realizing like I'm never going back to that. So we could grieve our former selves, grieve the loss of the reflections that our former selves attracted at those times in our lives, and maybe they're not in our lives anymore. Just yeah, grieve the past. Like it feels it's cathartic, and it really honors the depths of the love that an experience that we shared in those times.
Mhm. Thank you. And the grieving process is a little different for people, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like some people cry, some people scream in a pillow, some people go for a run. And it's important to also identify what your grieving process is. And that might be different depending on the relationship.
Mhm.
And not be ashamed of your grieving process. If
Mhm.
it means crying, a lot of people are ashamed to cry. But that is a gift that we were all given from birth. We're able to cry and produce tears, and water is the best cleanser, and we have how much water in us, and it comes out of our eyes. It literally cleanses everything, and and pours down our faces, and there's salty tears.
Mhm.
Grief is salty. Release can be salty, and I want to give you permission to grieve in the way that works best for you without judgment.
Without judgment, yes.
Yeah, I had to add that part.
And maybe be aware if anybody is causing you to feel judgment for your grieving process, or seek, if you want to be witness in your grief, um seek out the people who know how to hold space.
Yes, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
It really does, right? Because then it's all about you.
Mhm.
So holding space is it's all about you. And the person that does not hold space, it's all about them.
Mhm. And
The
they'll attach.
yeah,
So, know, they'll
and
try to problem solve, and when you're just grieving, you don't need any problem solved. You just need to release.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have all the solutions to your problems. You don't need anybody else telling you what to do or how to do it because they're not you,
Yeah.
right? So, other than that,
Right. Yeah. Beautiful.
mhm,
Thank you for this one.
yeah.
Really, really enjoyed this topic.
I know. I like this topic. I really do because it is personal to me, and I know it's personal to a lot of people, and a lot of people can relate because we've all, each and every one of us, has lost a friendship
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
and grieved over it, whether consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Rachel.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Yes, next week we'll maybe come up with another topic beforehand, and or maybe we just, as usual, just have fun and we'll see what comes up.
Yeah. All right. Much love.
Much love, and until next week, bye, and bye, everybody.
Bye.